Freshman Congressman Markwayne Mullin appealed for bipartisanship in a speech on the floor of the House last week.
Mr. Speaker, I come to you today not as a Republican or a Democrat, but an American committed to the United States Constitution. I regularly hear from my constituents who are fed up with the partisan fighting. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America, not our political parties.
But can Congress really come together this time and get a budget deal done? Representative Mullin is a Republican from Oklahoma. He joins me from Capitol Hill right now. How did that go over, by the way, Congressman?
It went great. We had immediately, when we walked off the floor, we had people on both sides coming to us and telling us spot on. I appreciate you taking a stance that way. And really, as a whole, the membership, I feel like we are coming together. Now, granted, I'm a very optimistic individual. My glass is always half full. But I believe if we are truly willing to put country first and put party second, we have an opportunity to get this country back on track. And I try to remind people it has nothing to do with us or our reelection. This has to do with our kids and our grandkids, and it's our responsibility to make sure we hand them something better than what was handed to us.
Do you feel like that's what's happening in this current budget process? Because Lou Dobbs was on here a short time ago saying that by virtue of putting forward the budget that we have right now and saying that, it depends on Obamacare being repealed, that isn't really a step forward with Democrats, since that in and of itself is such a non-starter.
Well, the most important thing is that we have to be able to get our spending under control. And you heard the White House come and say that their budget isn't going to balance. You hear the Senate not giving when or if ever their budget's going to balance. And it's because they're looking at Obamacare and realizing this country can't afford it. We can't simply go out there and do something and we don't even know what the cost is. Look, our spending's out of control right now. And if we implement Obamacare, it's going to bankrupt us. We're right on the verge. Literally, I feel like we're on the tipping balance of going too far over and not being able to bring this country back into stability.
But whether or not mathematically that's true, and certainly it makes sense, it seems like there's no way to get Democrats to agree to that. I mean, especially the president. This is his signature legislation.
Well, and see, what I'm talking about with the members, they're talking about this. They understand one thing that both sides of the aisle can agree, yes. And one thing that both sides of the aisle can agree is that we have to get spending under control. Sometimes the leadership maybe is not agreeing, but the members themselves, when our private conversations, we understand that we have a responsibility in front of us. And if the country can't afford it at this time, then it's time to look at something that can. And what Paul Ryan's budget did do is it put something else in place. And if you have the opportunity to look at it, you'll realize, look, we're not just totally punting national health care down the road. We're saying, let's put it with something that will actually work, that this country can afford, that will take care of those individuals that we really want to take care of.
Congressman, you also look at some other common sense things. For example, you look at the sequestration, the $85 billion there, and you point to the fact that the federal government made $115 billion in improper payments to people who weren't entitled to receive them or hadn't provided the documentation. What is that specifically, and how did that go over?
Well, as a business owner, I've dealt with balancing a checkbook literally every month. We have eight companies that are multi-million-dollar companies, and the only way you can tell if you pay something improper is you had to identify where it came from. And so the government in 2011 spent $115 billion in improper payments, $108 billion in 2012, and it's continued down that same track. And they're not willing to address it because it's either one, it's not politically reasonable for them to do it, or they just simply want to turn the eye and point fingers at someone else. And that's what I consider a lack of leadership. These were improper payments to individuals that had no business receiving it. Either they were here illegally or they didn't fill out the paperwork properly, and the country's still cutting these individuals checks. Now, you tell me anybody, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, that thinks that's a good idea.
And I had wanted to talk to you about the XL pipeline, but we're out of time, so you have to come back soon, okay, Congressman?
I would appreciate that. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Coming up.